Okay, here we go again. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to switch gears a little bit now. We're going to talk about privileged access management. And we have the pleasure and honor of having Brian Cullinan from EarthLink, a security engineer, to talk about his experience with CA PAM.
Thanks. Thank you. So again, I'm Brian Cullinan. I work for EarthLink. I am a security engineer, but I didn't start as a security engineer. So for a long time, I was actually a Windows systems engineer. I stood up SharePoint, merged Active Directories together, done forefront identity management, a number of other solutions as a Windows engineer. So one thing that we found in EarthLink, and my director who hired me into a security engineer role, at that time, a lot of people in security are network engineers, Linux-like users, and they go into security, and the security team really doesn't have anybody from like the Windows knowledge. And my director kind of threw all that together and created a really cool team where we go out and try to figure out what solutions are missing in our organization and to basically fill any gaps. So, and by the way, this is my first time ever presenting at any conference, so please bear with me here. So here's a little informational purpose slide, legal reasons, I guess. All right, so before we actually start, I'm going to have to go into a small overview of what EarthLink is. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. And then go into our business drivers and objectives, going into the solution requirements, vendor selection process, why we chose CA ultimately, an overview of our deployment, what CA services that we use to help out, and then some lessons learned. So here's a little EarthLink overview. I'm sure you've all heard of us. So EarthLink was an ISP. Then we went into becoming a managed network services provider. We actually do cloud security as well, and other security services on top of that. We have a large number of customers in many different areas. And what we mainly do for these customers is we build out networks for them. So customers that have lots of branch offices, we'll go out and build networks for them, and then we'll provide the best customer service that we can to our customers so that our customers could provide the best service to their customers. And now to our regularly scheduled program. So this slide here is what I needed to put into a deck to sell PAM internally to our board. And it basically explains what privileged accounts really are. So you think of your administrators, all right, your domain admins, your Linux team, your Unix team. Those accounts, yes, those are all your privileged users. But then you also have any account that, like, you have a web server. That web server needs to talk to a database. Well, it's going to log into that database. You're going to have service accounts that run IIS. You're going to, in SharePoint, you have, I think we had 15 different service accounts that ran SharePoint services. All these service accounts are privileged accounts. And usually when you put these accounts in place, you don't change the passwords as often as you want to. So we found that as a challenge in our organization, and we needed to find a solution to fix that problem. So, of course, there's the industry challenge here. There's data breaches happening almost every day. This week, as I was trying to study my slides, I saw a little feed going, hey, there's 412 million accounts, personal accounts for people that were stolen this week. I'm sure you saw that in the news. That's a pretty high number of accounts. And what hackers will do is they'll use this data to build password lists. Usernames, and there's a lot of people out there that are not really security minded that will use the same password. And they'll use their same password from their home accounts, sometimes in your domain, as their passwords to applications and stuff like that. So protecting your administrator users is extremely important. Beyond just the industry challenge out there of data breaches happening all the time, we've got other things to fill. We've got compliance. So you got PCI, we've got SOX. We're a telecom company, so we have to follow CP&I law. We've got HIPAA because we have an HR department. And with all these regulations out there, we have to have more and more security solutions to fit those needs. Also, we wanted to get better operational efficiency, get those unmanaged accounts, those passwords changed as fast as possible. We have our default domain policies where all our normal user accounts will get changed every 90 days or whatnot. But there's a lot of accounts out there that just didn't. They're ones embedded in code that some developer was like, hey, I needed an account, and just embedded it. And then that developer left and was like, what do we do now? And we wanted to reduce our risk with some sort of application. So we also have the privileged account or privileged access maturity model here. So we found ourselves kind of scattered in level 1 and level 2 on a lot of these fields. Maybe level 3 on a couple. We did start some role-based stuff with their privileged accounts, but we wanted to look and get into column 4 here and be optimized across the board. So PAM is going to help us get there. So after we came up with the business drivers, we had a reason to bring PAM into our company, or a solution. We had to come up with more of what we wanted that solution to really do. So vaulting is a big thing. So vaulting is the actual taking the accounts that you have out there and bringing them under password management. And that vaulting also, now you have this vault of your passwords, your administrators don't have access to administrative credentials anymore, all right? And that's a big ops change. A lot of your ops people may actually just log in to their workstations, check their email, and maybe browse the internet, and they're actually logged in as a domain admin account. If they get a virus, guess what? You're screwed. So with the vaulting is now that administrative credential is in this vault, they actually have to log in to check it out. And this checkout process will also have drive audits. So now you have an audit trail off the vault with them taking this credential out. The second thing is the automatic updates, so putting those passwords under much quicker changes. So once they take that password out, when they check it back in, we could change it instantly. Or we could change it sometime after that. Or we get for other types of accounts, our service accounts, we could even put other models around those, get those accounts to change every 90 days, every 45 days, every 30 days, and also use super strong passwords. Not just their 16 character, we could go 64 character or whatever that system will allow for. Plus different levels of characters and stuff like that. The app-to-app thing is your accounts that are tied into applications. The ones that will actually log into your database servers and stuff like that. And those accounts, you don't necessarily want an application to always go against the PAM appliance, because you got latency there, you've got somebody using your web app, you don't want latency with that checkout process. So your app-to-app licenses will, they have a thing where you could actually cache the credential on the box in an encrypted store, where the password is much, much quicker, like almost no latency, and that account will come out of the box and log in. And then that encrypted store is changed by the PAM appliance, so that credential is changed. And when you're changing it for that service or task, it's also changed in Active Directory. So you're changing an inactive directory and going into that task or service and changing it there at the same time, so you're not really getting downtime on your account. The Bastion portion that we were looking for in a solution is where we wanted to redesign the network a little bit. So a lot of our administrators, now that they have to go into the PAM appliance to check out the credential, we wanted to force them through this method to even get to their servers. So SSH, RDP connections, we funneled through that instead of them going directly from their desktops or other points in the network to get to these servers. And this makes it a lot tighter. If we restrict RDP and whatnot to only PAM, therefore we don't, if an attacker got onto somebody's workstation, they still won't be able to get to the server. They still have to go through the PAM appliance to get there. And then on top of the PAM appliance, another requirement we wanted is for the PAM appliance to be able to do two-factor authentication. So we have a second-factor authentication provider already in our organization. We put that on top of PAM. Now to actually even log into that device, they have your credentials and then that second factor, very, very secure. The Bastion also, another thing that we wanted is to have session recording. So that session recording was an important piece there. And anybody that's going through that Bastion, they're going to get recorded, whatever they do, and that's also recording RDP sessions through it, so SSH and RDP. Another thing that's also common in a lot of different of the PAM appliances, and not just CAs, is command blocking. So that Bastion will actually, when you're trying to do SSH, it will try to block. You could say, hey, somebody goes into your Unix server and you don't want them to run command XYZ. If they type command XYZ, it's going to block it. And then in the recording, it will also even show you where they typed it. So we had a strategy that we followed when we looked at vendors out there. First, we needed to figure out what vendors to look at. So I can't really tell you how we did that, but we just basically, there's a lot of leader reports out there, Gartner, Forrester, whatnot. Use what you have, go and find out what your leaders are. And we looked at everything that was, that would be for the mid-sized business range that were companies that were based in the Americas. Then we scheduled demos, just like online webinars, an hour demo, just to see what the product was. We found just through this demo process that we were able to eliminate a number of players. We saw one product that required administrators, when they were going to check out the credential, to go through 5 screens of workflow screens to put in why they needed the credential. And when you got administrators out there, when you're going to be putting this in from a security perspective, your administrators don't want to go through 20 steps to get to their password that they normally could get to in just have now. So we were able to weed out some other customers just using that. We talked to the existing customers that used the solution. So after we weeded down some vendors, we started asking our reps if we could have a customer call with somebody that already used the product. This was extremely helpful. I think with Pam's case, that the customer call actually sold the product more than anything. We were on a call, so for a negative, we were on a call with a customer from a competing company, and they're like, yeah, we've had our appliances in place, but we got this upgrade, and the upgrade took 4 or 5 months to get reused to, so we kind of are sort of using it for most of our stuff. And we were like, yep, axe that one off the board. With the CA, the customer that we talked to was a large customer. They had 10,000 plus servers. Every one of them were under management, and they were like, yeah, to upgrade PAM, we just have to break the cluster, pull one box out, we could test the code. Then after that, we could just do the same steps for all the boxes, rebuild the cluster, and they're up and running, and it usually takes about 45 minutes to do the entire process. I was like, okay. So we did come down to a race between 2 different vendors. The final selection was when we came in with in-house proof of concepts. There are products out there that do really nice demos. They're going to come up and they're doing a demo of this product for you, but they're doing it in their own virtual environment that they built, and everything works because it's all scripted. We have in EarthLink, we have seasoned Unix, Linux engineers that build out and customize the servers. Where one of the engineers, when he logs in, he gets a 2-line prompt, not a single-line prompt. One of the vendors that we were doing a proof of concept for, they came in, and when they tried to change the password, they were able to change the password, but then they have a test script in their code, and they tried to test the password. They didn't expect the 2-line path or whatnot, and the test failed, and then they never vaulted the password change. So when a number of administrators and ops guys are on the call and they see this happen, that just says basically, no, we're not buying that, because you're not going to go through and test an appliance with every one of your passwords and whatnot to see if it's going to actually work or not. So why CA? It's a hardened appliance right out of the box. For updates and stuff, it was basically, one, you get the appliance, you put it in place, you fire it up, everything's there. You don't have to worry about Windows licensing, you don't have to worry about licensing multiple boxes, you don't have to worry about upgrading multiple boxes. Everything was built in and ready to go. It upgrades easily from a single file, I mentioned that earlier. The password changes just worked for Unix and Linux. It didn't catch anywhere. And then it provided the SSH terminal and RDP client built into it, which was just awesome. The session recording, all that stuff we got from Pam, it just worked. It was a good solution. So we went to, when we deployed it, just because we're going to stick all our administrative privileged access credentials into an appliance, we built it big. All right, we built it into a single cluster, so that means that the PAM database is replicated to all 4 boxes. We built it between 2 data centers. So if we had a data center go down, people still could get their passwords out. So because they're ops guys, if the data center goes down, they're on a call, they're trying to fix things, right? Then we also took 2 appliances in each data center, mainly for high availability, just in case we have a lot of people doing stuff at the same time. Yes, we know that the PAM appliance can do 2,000 current sessions, but we just built it big. We're all about security and not wanting things to break. So we put the site load balancers were per site, and what this allowed us to do is that because we have, instead of having somebody log into DC1 and they needed to access some server in DC2, they could actually now just go through the SLB that for the data center, and then they're directed to 2 appliances in that cluster, and they could more easily manage SSH or remote desktop the servers they needed to in that particular data center. We've also put Windows proxies throughout our network to do the discovery and management of the Windows credentials. The NFS mounts that we used were 500 gig each, and that's from what we've heard from our CA services guys, that's going to be more than enough for recordings through PAM. So with CA services, it's been awesome. They've done a lot of our documentation for us. They helped us identify use cases that we didn't even think of. Every time I call them, they're always ready. They'll get answers to us really quickly. We've done the training. We took training. We have 5 people on the team. Myself. We have 3 Unix guys and 2 Windows 5 people on the team. 2 Windows ops guys and 2 Unix ops guys. We're all trained on PAM, both on implementation of PAM and also administration of it. And then we bought some of the modular add-ons so that the CA services guys could help us implement our own second factor solution that we already had. We also, for the clustering setup, and then also help us with the documentation and the use cases and all that. So the lessons learned is definitely do your homework when you're buying these, an appliance like this. Don't just go out and see a demo of a customer, of a piece of equipment, say, hey, this is really, really cool, and then just go out and put it in your network. Know that it works. Go through that proof of concept. PAM is also a very large undertaking, so you're going to have accounts everywhere in your network. Finding them and bringing them into PAM is going to take some time. So we broke it down into phases. We mainly wanted to get all our administrators' credentials first, and then go for our DBAs and our development team, and then go into more of the service accounts, and then later on into the app accounts, the app-to-app accounts, the ones that are more buried in code. So and in all these cases, we started small. We took, we tested what we needed. We came up with a way of bringing them in. The PAM UI is actually a little clunky, but they have a method to bring in import and export accounts. And their import and export account mechanism is really, really good. And it just works really well. It's pretty easy to use. You could even use APIs around it to do that too if you want to. We haven't done that. We just export stuff to spreadsheets, and we import by spreadsheets as well. And what that also helped is we were able to use existing discovery systems that we had, like SCCM, to bring in information from that into spreadsheets and then just bring it straight into PAM. And just when you're deploying anything, just test it, make sure everything works, because again, this thing's going to have all your credentials in it, and you don't want it to go down. So, in a short summary here, so at EarthLink we do defense and theft. We have a lot of different technologies in place and in play to. It's like layers of an onion. You don't want it. You don't ever want to be breached. You don't want to be in the news. So the security team that we had, we noticed that we had some gaps with how long accounts, the service accounts in general, were not getting changed as frequently as we wanted them to. So we fought to get this PAM solution. We won. We got it in place, and it's awesome. So if anybody has any questions, please come up to the microphone. They are recording this session, so your question will be recorded when you go up to the mic. I also have Jayesh here to answer any technical questions in regard to PAM, because yes, I took the administration course and the implementation course, but I didn't design it. I'm not an expert. He's the expert on all this.
So you mentioned you had a dual data center deployment.
Yes.
What's the geography between those two data centers? And the second part, do you have any issue with the cluster getting out of sync due to latency because of that distance between those two data centers?
So we're in, so being an ISP and all that stuff, we do have some fat pipes between our stuff. So we have a dedicated, I think it's an 8 gig connection between the two data centers. The data centers are probably about, I think they're like 70 miles apart, so it's not, they're in the same state for this, but we were talking to another customer, that one customer reference call, and they had their data centers much further. They had one, I think, on the West Coast and one on the East Coast or something, and it still worked.
Thank you.
Yep.
Quick one, for the credential management, do you have to have Windows proxy server?
All right, so the Windows proxies are, so PAM is mainly it's a Unix appliance, and for PAM to manage and discover credentials on the Windows side of the house, they use part of like the .NET framework and all that stuff to do that. So you install the Windows proxies out on your network. With one proxy, you could basically manage an entire AD domain and discover credentials on any host in that domain. We did a little bit more than that because our network is segmented. We have what we call a QE zone, we have a DMZ zone, we have our internal zone, we have some other network zones. So we actually put proxies into some of those other areas so that, and we did not only one, we did two just in case one went down or whatnot, so that we are able to cover everywhere our Windows hosts are. You only need the Windows proxies to discover credentials and change credentials on Windows machines.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
I'm kind of curious as to how much recording you do. Do you record all the time, or do you record only on specific events? Because you had mentioned that 500 gigs is enough.
So the recording is super compressed, and it doesn't record all the time. It actually records only when you're kind of like moving the mouse or like doing work on the machine. So an administrator could be logged into an RDP session and just not doing anything because he's looking at his notes on something else, and it's only going to record kind of while things are actually going on. The recordings are actually pretty small, and as I said, they're compressed too. So from what we've seen so far, we're doing pretty good. We haven't really had to purge any of our recordings yet.
You said that you were able to cache passwords for scripts or other languages to be used for service accounts.
Yeah, so Jayesh should probably answer that one better. So we're not. So we've tested some of this in the like proof of concept phases, but we're not fully deployed on the app-to-app side yet.
So what we do essentially is that inside the scripts, we have a plugin that we can attach that will automatically go to the password vault, get the password, use it, and automatically change the password automatically. So it's completely automated. It's called A2A, and I can discuss it offline, and I can walk you through
I was just wondering what languages have you tested it in or have it available in?
Yeah.
Oh, for coding, so
Sure.
they have a number of languages. There's .NET, there's Java, there's. I was doing some stuff in PowerShell with it. Let's see.
VB,
VB script. There's also a mechanism where it could actually go and replace passwords in files. So like web configs and stuff like that, there's a mechanism that could change passwords there too.
Yeah.
Python at all?
Yes, Python is there too.
Okay.
So we're out of time for questions, but I'm sure Brian and Jayesh both will be available for questions after this session, and thank you very much.
Plus you'll find me at the reception and some other places
Yeah.
too. Thank you.
Great job.